Um, Hi, I'm Lilith, and this is my experience with Christianity. I don't know if you can hear me actually. Hold on, let me get closer to the screen. I don't know. I am not a content creator. I don't do this for a living or anything. I don't know. Let me take my glasses off because you can't really see me that well. There we go. Hi. Shouldn't put that on the record. There we go. Hey, look, you can see him. That's funny. Um, I'm gonna put a trigger warning. I don't know if I actually put a trigger warning before this. I don't know if I edited it, but in case I did, trigger warning for um sexual assault, domestic violence, and just general abuse. This is gonna be a tough one. This is gonna be a tough one. I was raised in a Christian household, multiple Christian households. Not really go to church every Sunday kind of Christian, but I'm wearing a shirt, by the way. It literally looks like I'm not. I promise I am. Look, I'm actually gonna zip this up because I'm scared that I look like I'm not wearing a shirt and YouTube's gonna kill me. I'm great at this, can't you tell? Oh, I have a lazy eye. Don't mind that. This is my Pierce the Veil. This is my Pierce the Veil sweatshirt I got a few days ago. But I wasn't raised in a we have to go to church every Sunday kind of household. It wasn't aggressively Christian, but it was established that, at least on my dad, I lived with my mom and dad at first. I was very little. The beginning of third grade, that's how long I lived with just my mom and dad. And our two cats, Boots, no. Was it Boots? I don't know, it was Boots and Micha. But I loved Micha because she was a cute little gray kitty and she was my favorite. I didn't treat Boots very well, but I was a kid and I didn't really know. And our dog, Ender. Oh my god, I'm sick. I don't know if you can tell, but I'm sick. That don't sound great. But it was a nice little house. It was a duplex. Our neighbors were nice. My dad was the landlord. But my dad also had drinking problems. And my mom had a slew of mental challenges, I guess you could say. Neither of them were really great people, and I probably shouldn't have been born, but I'm here now. I'm here. My mom isn't really Christian. I don't think she believes in God, but Dad did. Dad was raised in a very Christian household. My grandmother and my grandfather. But actually, Dad was a really bad landlord and didn't do his job well. And all the money that he got didn't go towards the house. It went towards, or bills or anything, it went towards beer and alcohol. So the house was getting just unsafe to live in. And we moved in with my grandmother in her tiny little house. Her tiny little house in a few towns over. Cities. Towns. And then we moved into the most suburban part of the city ever. It was tiny. It was full of country folk. And I live in Massachusetts. We're full of either the most city people or the most rural country folk ever. I was kind of in the middle of that. I lean more on the countryside, or not country, the city side now. But you know, it's kind of a general theme, is like wherever I am, I'm like smack dab in the middle of two very opposing things, and it's kind of hard to figure it out as you go along. But I didn't really understand Christianity as a concept. One time I do remember, before we moved, I went downstairs and I asked my parents, is Jesus Christ a swear word? Because I wasn't allowed to swear at the time, but I could hear my parents saying Jesus Christ, and I was like, that sounds like a name. That sounds like a name. Is that a swear? So they were like, oh, kinda sometimes. And I was like, oh, okay, sure. I just won't say it. So they also taught me that Justin Bieber was a swear word, so. Great parenting, guys. Sorry if I keep rubbing my eyes. It's just like a thing that I do. And I'm gonna do it all the time, and I'm gonna be like, why am I doing it so much? But anyways, my grandmother is much more Christian. I honestly don't really remember much about that time that I lived with my grandmother, because it was only a couple of years that I was there. And the only reason I left is because she had a stroke in 2019. And, you know, it was a really bad one. And she was supposed to be okay, and they were supposed to do some surgery, but then during that surgery, she had another stroke. And half of her body became unusable. So she couldn't really do anything. They sent her into like a shitty nursing home in our small little county, but it wasn't enough. They weren't treating her right. So she moved out to Indiana with my aunt on my dad's side, obviously, but I think she moved out there in 2020, and she's been there ever since. So it was just me and my mom and dad at the house at the time, so it was just us three again. And our dog, Ender. Not Ender, fuck, that was a different dog. Buddy, our dog Buddy. He had some problems. He had to wear a diaper, but I loved him. It was a little weird, but we loved him. Dad's drinking got worse after my grandmother had the stroke. And Mom got worse, just mentally, and it turned into a really bad situation. And at that point I was old enough to know that things weren't good. They couldn't hide it anymore. They just couldn't. Dad's drinking was too severe, and Mom's handling of it just kept getting worse. So at some point in 2019... No, she had the stroke in 2018, and then all this shit went down in 2019. Sorry, I have really bad memory because of other stuff that happened later down the line. But in 2019, when I started middle school, we moved back to where I originally lived in a smaller apartment. It was just me and Mom for a while, and Dad stayed at the house where my grandmother lived. Until Dad kind of convinced her to let him move in. And that's when the shit show started. One of them. I want to say right now, to set up later events, my mom is not good with boundaries, and she's also very codependent. She needs someone else to be in control. She's not good at being on her own. When it wasn't Dad, it was me. So I kind of had to take care of two people, basically. Well, mentally at least. She was sometimes giving me food and the bare essentials, but otherwise, middle school sucked, as it always does. Especially because it was during COVID, and I didn't really have any way to. I knew that what was happening was bad, and it was getting to me, but also just like the general being inside, not having any human contact. It was bad. My problems, my mental problems showed up in 3rd grade. I started cutting myself in 4th, I think. No, it was 3rd. I started really, like, at that point, they were superficial cuts. Kind of like if you scrape yourself. It was like that. Because I didn't actually know how to. Like, how to actually cut. Oh, I didn't put a trigger warning for self-harm. That's okay, I'll put one at the beginning. Oops. Whoopsies, I forgot that part was a huge thing of it. But it's okay. And I think during that whole thing with COVID, I think I really got a grasp of what Christianity is, and then I got a grasp of how bad my situation was, and I thought to myself, there's no way that God would let this happen to anyone. So I didn't believe in him. If there's this benevolent God who can help people, why wasn't he helping me? Why wasn't he helping my family? Why wasn't he being benevolent? Why was he just letting this happen? So I didn't believe in him, and I thought, he can't exist, and if he does, I hate him for letting this happen. And that was how it was for a while. Things got worse and worse, and I wasn't treated well. No one was treating anyone well. I was in the center of it. I got the blow from mom and dad treating each other poorly, and then them treating me poorly. Everything being blamed on me for whatever reason, because neither of them had anything else they could blame, because they were too prideful to blame themselves for anything. So they just blamed me because I couldn't do anything about it. I was like 13. From the ages of 12 to 13, everything was blamed on me. No, 12 to 15, Jesus Christ, sorry. 12 to 15, everything was blamed on me. And from 14 to 15, I lived on my own, actually, because eventually Dad's drinking got to the point where he wasn't allowed in the house anymore. The DCF got involved, because he was home one day and he was drunk off his mind. And I was home, I was doing my school. I was trying to do school, and he kept calling me over and then sending me back and calling me over, and it was clear that he wasn't sober. So I told one of my teachers, I was like, hey, I'm not gonna have my camera on because my dad keeps calling me over and I don't want to distract everyone. And she was like, are you okay? And I was like, yeah, he'll be fine. He'll be fine. It's just annoying. And she called DCF because, of course, she's a banded reporter. If the kid's telling her that her dad's drunk, then you gotta call, you know? And especially it probably made it even. I thought I was making it better by saying like, "Oh no, 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 it'll be fine. I know how to deal with this." But that probably made it even worse because it was like, oh, this is a normal occurrence. Oh, this kid knows how to deal with a drunk parent. That's not good. Let's investigate this. So it ended up in Dad being forced out of the house. But Mom let him back in because, of course she did. She can't be on her own. Even if my safety is in jeopardy, her sanity matters more, I guess. That's a common theme, by the way. That's a common theme. She's not really fit to be a mother, but it's okay. I love her. Because she gave the same shit to me. And all this time, while all this is happening, I'm thinking, I was right. Things are getting worse. There's no way that God exists. At one time, and Dad was living in his car at the time. And sometimes when I'd go in there, I'd see a book about God. I'd see a Bible, and I was like, you still believe in him? I didn't say that because I knew better, but I'd see that book and I'd be like, you still believe in God after everything? How could you? And then I started thinking that my dad was using God as a crutch, as a sort of Hail Mary to just be okay with what's happening to him and not take responsibility. Until he got his own apartment and things got worse. I only saw it once. Mom only let me over there once. After he left and got his own apartment, she started telling me all these horrible things about him. She groomed me into believing that he was some horrible person that never cared about me or her or anyone. So I was okay with that. It was weird whenever I saw him or talked to him because it felt like it wasn't my dad anymore. It was this horrible, manipulative abuser. And he did abuse us. He was horrible, but only when he was drunk or on something. Because it turns out he was using heroin too. Which is crazy. I didn't know that until he was already gone. But I believe my mom. She was all I had now. What would happen if I didn't believe her and then I was totally alone? So I followed everything she said. I went with everything because I needed one. At least one. I needed someone. She was all I had. So that was it. And she, like I said, she didn't believe in God, so I just sort of stopped thinking about him. Just focused on whatever I could. And then she met Jim, her fiance now, but I don't know. That was before he moved. It was this whole thing. I don't really want to talk about it. I don't care about him. He's fine now, but as you'll see, he wasn't really a great person, and I have a lot of things that I don't know if I could ever forgive him for. I like to be forgiving. I like to see the good in people, but some people just aren't redeemable like that, and the way I see it, he's one of those. Which sucks, because I'm sure he would be a great person if he wasn't the way that he was. You know? Like there are parts of a person that are so good and so like worth it, and then there are parts that are so much louder and so much worse, and it sucks because that good part, you want that, but it's surrounded by just horribleness, like genuinely bad things, and it sucks. He's a great hairstylist, but he doesn't listen to what you want. He just does what he wants, which works for someone like my mother who can't make her own decisions. I'm sorry, Bob, I love you, but it's true. She just lets him do whatever he wants, but I have specific wants with my hair, and he just would never listen and just kind of did what he wanted. And then I'd be upset because that's not what I wanted. But whatever. He knows everything's right. And I forgot to mention, during this time, I thought that I was transgender. And even now, some part of me feels like I don't fit within that sort of male-female binary. I'm a girl, but not like strictly, you know? I'm not, I don't know. That's a whole different topic that I'm probably gonna set the camera down and ramble about for like 20-30 minutes, but I don't know. For like a year, like I said, when I was 14 to 15, I was living on my own basically because Mom would be over at Jim's house. He lived in the apartment like right next to us. He lived an apartment over. There was like one apartment between my place and his. I call it my place because she didn't sleep there. She barely brought food over. It was a good night if food was brought over. Without me having to remind her. Oh my god, it was a great night. But usually it would just be me having either like buttered noodles or buttered bread. Butter everywhere. But it was simple meals. Sometimes she'd get me, I was having a really big Sonic face at the time, so sometimes she'd get me chili sauce, and she'd get me hot dogs. And I'd have chili dogs. And it was great. And one time I sat outside and I looked at the stars and I ate my chili dog, and that was one of the best memories that I have. Is eating a chili dog at night. But, you know, just, you're not supposed to be living on your own at 14, 15. I remember the night I turned 15. Because since 3rd grade, I was confident that I would not make it to 15. I thought that I would kill myself before then. And then I made it to 15. And I didn't know what to do with myself. And then a few nights after, it started snowing, because I was born in November, so you know, it's that kind of like in between fall and December. Fall and winter. Fall and winter is what I meant. And it snowed a few days after. I was born on the 12th, it snowed on the 15th. And I sat outside and I cried for hours because I love the snow. It's comforting to me. And it felt like something was telling me that it's okay that I made it that far. And looking back now, I think that was God telling me that it's okay that I'm mad at him, that he'll still be there. And I don't know, I thought maybe it was, I don't know, maybe I was making it up, but no, I think that was God forgiving me like he does. Like he's good at doing. And telling me that it'll be okay someday. That I was meant to make it that far, and I was meant to make it even farther. I don't think he realized what would have happened after that. That following year, I moved in with Mom and Jim, and I had my own room and everything, and it was nice for a while. But then they were... It felt like my mom and dad all over again, because Jim was the same sort of person that Dad was. He didn't drink, but he relied on substances the same way, different substances. He vaped, which is insane for a 60-year-old man to be vaping, but whatever, I mean, sure. And they also both smoked weed. And DCF said that there's supposed to be at least one sober parent in the household, and there never was. They're both fucking smoking weed all the time. I'm not against weed. I'm not. I mean, I'm 17, I'm not gonna be smoking it for a hot minute, but even if I do ever smoke it, I don't know, but I've had my fair share of trying to use substances to get rid of pain, and that has never worked. So, I have, oh my god, why am I like, I don't know. I have no intention of trying to do that. Don't worry. I learned my lesson through other people and just my own experience as a severely mentally abused and a little bit physically 16-year-old child. Because I wanted to believe that I wasn't still a child, but I was. And now I realize that, you know. But at first it was Mom and Jim who were at odds constantly, and I was just witnessing it. They were both loud and too prideful to back down, same way that Mom and Dad were. But this time it was worse because I knew everything, and I saw everything. And at one point, I spoke up and I said, what's the point of being with someone if it's the exact same thing you were trying to get away from? And that changed something. They got better. They didn't fight as much. They both started hurting me. Mentally at first, verbally abusing me at first, belittling me, and chastising me for every little thing I did. Making me feel worthless. Like I was a burden on them. And like they didn't want me there. And my mom was the main, perpetrator of it. And she'd say all these horrible things to me, and she'd get upset with me for things that really were just me being a kid who was through too much. I started doing bad in school. I started isolating myself in my room. I started smoking cigarettes that I'd pick up off the street. I started cutting myself. Really cutting myself. I still have the scars. I just quit cutting myself recently. They kicked me out a few times. 3 times. Once in January. It was cold, and I had just gone home from theater at school. I started doing theater because it was a way for me to get out. It was a way for me to prolong having to go home because I was so scared of being home. I would take walks at night so that I didn't have to be in that room, because it felt like a prison. the whole house felt like a prison. I didn't have anything that I could eat. They both had things that they were allowed to eat and I wasn't. I could only eat peanut butter and jelly, and I could only drink milk and water. And I could only eat what they gave me for dinner. And if I wanted anything else, I was ungrateful. And a burden. Constantly it was shoved into my psyche that I was a burden to them before anything else. I was a burden to my mother before I was her child. I was a burden to Jim before I was anything else. I think that was all I was to him for a while. Because Mom started shoving her parental responsibilities onto him and he took it out on me. Because, I don't know. Because I was a threat. I told Mom this isn't good. I told Mom it was bad because he still treated her like shit too. And she was so far in that she just got worse. She got mad at me for trying to save her because she didn't think that she needed saving, and it just all got worse. The second time I got kicked out was in April, and she beat me. My mom beat me, like really badly. After they let the cats out because I didn't know how to do the fucking litter box. No one taught me. And I was under the impression that I was doing it right. It was my one thing that I did. That and the dishes. That was what I did. And I fed the animals in the morning and sometimes in the afternoon, and I got the mail. And I swept. And that was all I did. And they got so mad at me for not knowing how to do something that I was never taught. They let the cats out to prove a point. And I got pissed. For the first time in my life, I got pissed. And I stood up for myself and I said, what the fuck did you do to my cat? One of those cats was my cat that I owned. He was mine. And they let him out to prove a point, and I got pissed. Because, god damn it, if at some point I didn't deserve to get pissed, or at some point I deserved to get pissed, and that was the point. I didn't care what they did to me. At that point, I was so done with living. They could do whatever they wanted to me. But the moment that they did something to my cat, one of the few things keeping me alive, that's when I got pissed. And I said, what the fuck did you do to my cat? And she lost it. I just got a new TV. It was huge. But it was one that they weren't using anymore, so I hustled it downstairs from the attic and I set it up in my room and I was watching fucking Dungeon Meshi, Delicious in Dungeon. I was having a great time. I loved that TV. It had a really weird blue tint to it, but I liked it. It was fine. And she smashed it. She got so pissed she smashed it and she came over to me. And she almost choked me. Her hands were right here. And I was so scared. I was scared for my life. I thought she was gonna kill me. To this day, she still says that she didn't do that. She still vehemently denies doing that. I know she did it. I know she did it because it scares me every day. I have nightmares about it to this day. And she still thinks that she didn't do it. She still vehemently denies not doing it. I know exactly why she thinks she didn't do it. Because she was manic. And she just doesn't remember doing it, but she did it. And that wasn't all. She hit me over the side of the head, and then hit me on the side of the head again, and I was on the ground. And she told me to get out. She pointed at the door and told me to get out, and then she kicked me onto the ground. And then hit me and kicked me again. And then used my door to forcefully push me out of my room. And I scrambled. I had no shoes on. I had no shoes on. I had pants and a sweatshirt. And I ran out of that apartment. It's amazing that I didn't fall down the stairs running out of that apartment. I ran to the police and I told them, my mom just beat me and kicked me out of the house. I can't go back. And they knew who I was because I went there the first time too. So they sent me to my grandmother for a while. A few days. And I went to school and it was fine. And I thought, maybe I actually got out. And then I got called up to the office and they said that mom called and said to come right home after school, and I thought, fuck, I still have to do this? I'm still stuck. And I could have left. I could have told them, no, please don't make me go back there. She hurt me. She's going to start hurting me. But I was so scared of what would have happened if I didn't comply. I thought she almost killed me. She could have killed me. What would she do if I didn't listen? So I went back. And everything got worse. DCF didn't do anything. No one did anything. That was it. And she started tracking my phone, every message I sent, everything. She wouldn't let me have my phone for a while. The only way I could have it is if I went outside, and that was only if I asked and tried to explain why I needed my phone, and sometimes that wouldn't even work, so I'd be out for hours at a time without a phone. God forbid something happened. And then one morning, I was up early at 5:30. I checked my phone because I had finally gotten it back. I checked my phone just to see what notifications I had, and I sent a message in a Discord server, and she came upstairs and she was ballistic. She accused me of being up all night on my phone. Because a few days earlier I asked to stay at home because I was exhausted and I knew I couldn't do anything in school that day. And she let me, and then she got mad and said that I don't deserve a rest day if I was on my phone all night. And I wasn't. I went to bed at like 11 that night and I got up at 5:30 because that's just when I got up naturally. And she smashed the phone. And I took it and I was gonna bring it to the police. So I put it in my bag, and she tried to take the bag from me, and I didn't let her. And she was like, fine, if you want to go tell the police that I smashed my property, you can go do it right now. And she kicked me out again. It was morning, before school, and I hadn't showered, I hadn't changed out of clothes I wore to bed, nothing. And she kicked me out, and she said, since you don't want to be here anymore, give me the keys. She gave me an option. She said, you can go to school right now with your keys and you can come home tonight, or you can give me your keys and never come back. And I gave her my keys. And during school that day, I texted my aunt on my very, very smashed phone, which definitely got glass shards all over my thumbs. I texted my aunt and I said, can you please come get me today? After my theater. After my theater thing. because I was still doing theater. I was operating the lights for one of our musicals. And she said yes. And she did, and she came and got me. And I finally escaped. And I've been here ever since. This is my aunt's house. I've been here since May 16th of 2024. I've been here over a year. And it's been one of the weirdest years of my life. Not because it was bad, but just because, I don't know, it's weird to be in a house full of support when all you've seen your entire life was just being an afterthought. They brought me on vacation with them to Florida. That was my first time ever being on a plane. My first time ever being out of New England. And it was so weird. But I loved it. And I felt human for the first time in way too long. Sorry. Ugh, that was gross. In the beginning of this year, I realized that I wasn't actually trans. I just wanted control of something because I had no control over anything. I came out in 6th or 7th grade, and my parents didn't really believe me. No one really believed me until quite a few years passed, and then my mom begrudgingly started calling me by the name I chose at the time. Lilith isn't my birth name. My birth name doesn't fit me as a person at all. Lilith fits much better. But, you know, I've only been here a year, and there's been a lot of stuff just left rotting in those parts of my brain that are still in survival mode, I guess. But this family that I live with now, they're very Christian, and they go to church almost every Sunday. And I've gone a couple times, and it's been a little weird. I felt like I didn't really belong. But they were welcoming to me. Very welcoming. And it kind of made me rethink my relationship with God. And I thought, maybe he was real. And maybe he can't control what people do, but he can save someone. However he sees fit. Maybe he made it so that my phone was still working. Maybe he made sure that my aunt would really come for me. Maybe he made sure that it was someone somewhere with a stable. Maybe he made sure it was somewhere stable that I got to go to. Maybe he is the one who showed me that I'm worth being, that I'm worth living. It's worth it. I thought that God wasn't real, and I thought that if he did, that he wasn't benevolent. He couldn't have been. And I thought that if he was real, he betrayed me. And he didn't love me. like everyone says he loves everyone. I didn't think that he loved me because of everything that he let me go through. But thinking back now, I think that he had a plan all along. And that sometimes you need to go through things to really understand how everything works and to really appreciate life. I live a good life now. I value myself more than I ever have before. I still have issues. I take medication for my depression and other disorders that I got either from my mom's genetics or just from what I witnessed. I have PTSD. I got sexually assaulted in 2024, and that set me back a while. But I haven't given up yet. Like I gave up when I lived with Mom and Jim. It was to the point where some nights the only reason I didn't try to kill myself was because I was just too tired, and it was easier to go to sleep and do it the next day. I hope I had enough, and just hope I had enough energy to do it the next day. Just recently, I stopped cutting myself. It is pretty bad. Those aren't new. Those are scars, like week old scars, maybe even a month. But they look like that because that just kept getting worse, because that's what addiction is it just keeps getting worse. I don't smoke anymore. I don't drink. But that cutting, it worked. And still sometimes I find the urge to cut, because sometimes it's all just too much and I need to not think for a while. And blood loss makes you lightheaded, so you don't really think about it. But I think God is real. I think God is real, and I think that He cares. And I think that He forgives me for being mad at Him, and I think that He understands. And I think that I love Him, and I'm not mad at Him anymore. And I think that things are going to be okay. And I think He's going to make it so that everything's okay in the end. I think He has a way of doing that where He kind of he gets you going for a while, and then He just kind of swoops in and says, actually, let's fix this. You learned your lesson. Let's get back on track. So I think that's kind of what my life has been so far. Is I think He's got big plans for me, which is why He put me through so much. And also, I don't think He can really control people, which is why He didn't make me love Him, which is why He didn't make Mom and Jim stop, or Mom and Dad stop. Dad didn't quit drinking until it was too late. He died in Indiana in 2023. He died, and it was hard. And I thought he died thinking that I hated him. He didn't. He knew. But that was a lot. Right before the school year started, too. right before the school year started, I got the news that he died. So that was a great start to the year. You know, I'm going into senior year this year, and I'm turning 18 this year. I never thought I'd make it this far, but I have plans now. I have a future, and I have a life that I want to live. And I have friends who love me and support me. And I have God. And I'm okay with God now. And I think that he's always been okay with me, but I don't know. There's my experience with God and Christianity and my little life story. If anyone watches this 50-minute video all the way through, then thank you for caring about some little emo 17-year-old girl from Massachusetts. I hope that this reaches someone when it needs to. I hope that things work out for everyone. Everyone deserves something. I don't know what that something is. It varies from person to person, but everyone deserves something. Something good. Something that tells them that it's okay to keep living. Whether that's God, or your friends, or a cat. I've had all of those, so even if it's just there's a really good show you like, and you don't want to miss it, live for something, because at some point you're gonna realize that even if it feels like you have no control, the best thing you can do is keep breathing, because one day you're going to be able to control yourself and can have control of your life and feel alive. And it won't always be some sort of survival. It won't always be survival. You'll have something to live for. I should know. I've been through that. But yeah, thanks for listening to me ramble for like an hour about how sad my life is and how God made it better. That's not really the truth. God helped, but I did most of the heavy lifting. He just showed me what to lift. Alright. Okay.